Good evening and welcome to We the People. The telephone wars between Amar Singh and the Congress party have turned now into a rather violent political tap dance. At the heart of the matter, public figures and their right to privacy. That's what we'll debate on We the People this evening. We'll also look at whether the media applies different standards for privacy for politicians as compared to other celebrities. But let's start the program with the man at the center of the storm, Amar Singh, who's in Hyderabad, where he met Chandrababu Naidu today. Chandrababu Naidu and Jay Lalita have now joined the chorus of leaders who say that they suspect that their phones are being tapped as well. Amar Singh, my question for you, sir, would be to quote to you what Ambika Soni said at one of her press conferences. She said, "Why is Amar Singh so worried about these tapes being made public? What does Amar Singh have to hide?" How would you respond to that?
First of all, I would like to say that I am not at all worried. This is assumption of Mrs. Ambika Soni, because audio tapes are not legally admissible in the court of law. And secondly, as per police investigation, 80 lakh rupees is paid to the people who have been outsourced to tap my phone. If 80 lakh rupees can be paid for my tapping, then for distortion and for doctoring these tapes, how much money can be paid? It can be anybody's guess. On one hand, it is being said that these letters on the basis of which the phones are tapped, they are forged letters, and on the other hand, Ambika Soni is saying that what is there to hide? I have got nothing to hide, because Congress party has sponsored the entire program. They must be having possession of this tape. My only humble submission is that they should hold a press conference in the august presence of Mrs. Gandhi, and they should accept that they have ordered this tapping and this is the content of the tapping, and they should produce it to the public.
Vinod Mehta, let's start with you. No matter which way we look at it, the idea that the state may be involved or the government may be involved in tapping a politician's phones is something that's a very, very uncomfortable thought. Of course, the Congress and the government have said they have nothing to do with this. But do you believe that? Do you believe in your gut as an editor of many years that the Congress and the government have nothing to do with this?
No, although this debate has been slightly trivialized by the manner in which it has been conducted, I think we are discussing an extremely serious issue. Whether you're a politician or a pedophile, it doesn't matter. Your privacy is sacrosanct, it's inviolable. And in the rarest of rare cases, if that privacy has to be invaded, and by the state, then a very good case has to be made, procedures and guidelines have to be followed. You know, as we talk, President George Bush tried to bypass procedures and guidelines, and he was snubbed by his own party, saying that the President of the United States of America has no authority, even after 9/11, he has no authority to bug or intercept the email of his citizens. He also must go through the due processes of law.
Politician or pedophile, you said privacy is sacrosanct. Let's go back now to Amar Singh. My question was, isn't there a contradiction that on the one hand you said that you believe that the tapes may have been doctored, on the other hand you're convinced that it's your private conversations that have been taped?
No, yeah, I'm saying that it can be both, because people who are taping my phone, they are not my friends, and they wanted to know about my political discussion, they wanted to know about my political strategy, they were snooping in my personal and private life. But when it is not police, it is not government who has admitted this, I explored it through my own sources. I openly, through you, Barkha, am requesting Ambika Soni and Sonia Gandhi to make the content public, because the way Ambika Soni has said, that is precisely my charge. She knows what is there in the tape, I don't know, because she must be knowing what is there in the tape, because she is the producer and director of the tape. And subsequently, when Lalu Yadav is saying that make the content public, I don't know whom to believe. Contradiction is in the government. Manmohan Singh ji is saying it is a very serious issue, and Lalu Yadav and Ambika Soni, they are saying it's a frivolous issue.
Now, when you go to the
Abhishek
Supreme Court,
Singhvi
Amar Singh ji,
giving a
when you petition the Supreme Court, as you are planning to do very soon, will you make the Congress party an official respondent in that, or are you going to just ask for an investigation? What do you want to happen next?
Please wait and see. I will quote here the famous philosopher Philip Zimmerman, who said, if privacy is outlawed, only outlaws will have privacy. Manmohan Singh ji is saying that this is a serious matter. PMO is saying that they will move to the court because Amar Singh has dragged by name. Manmohan Singh ji as Prime Minister is saying something. It's a democracy where collective responsibility is the matter.
You also blamed an industrialist. Who did you mean?
Well, it is obvious, I don't want to name.
Okay, that says everything. Amar Singh ji, thank you very much for joining us from Hyderabad. We are going to get the Congress to answer those allegations as well. Ram Jethmalani, let's get your take in as a senior lawyer, as a politician, and as somebody who once defended the Tatas against phone tapping.
Listen, there are two ways of looking at this wiretapping business. First is how law looks at it, and second is how an individual looks at it. And the second, there's obviously a subjective element. I mean, I may be totally indifferent to wiretapping, and I don't care. I mean, so long as people don't use my client's professional communications and
no, if your phones were tapped, how would you feel?
I couldn't care less. I have nothing to hide. Like Churchill.
No, but then do you think that the Congress has a point when it says what does Amar Singh have to hide?
I fully respect Amar Singh's anxiety. A man is entitled to say that on principle, I do not want my privacy to be interfered with by anybody. Now, so far as the law is concerned, the law has derived this right of privacy from Article 19 and Article 21 of the Constitution of India. Therefore, it can only, first of all, be taken away or limited or restricted or interfered with by a law made by a legislature, and which law must be reasonable, not oppressive, not excessive, to the satisfaction of our judicial tribunals. But second, where I seem to disagree is that if a person is in public life and he is a politician has no private life.
A politician has no private life.
A politician's private life is also a matter of public concern. Therefore, he can't complain merely on the ground that his privacy is being interfered with. Question is, to what use are those communications being put to?
I disagree with that entirely. I think a politician is entitled to his private life. Politics in India would not be, you would not be able to conduct politics in India, because politicians also do something. There are many confidential conversations among politicians.
Yeah.
So a politician is entitled, if he's in a public place, that's different. But if his private telephone is being tapped, and privately if he's talking, ex-politician is talking to Y politician privately, talking about coalition matters, talking about compromises, you would not be able to conduct politics in a democracy if all that was made public. So I think we have to be extremely careful. Extremely
this
careful.
is the hub of the debate. Is a politician's private life the public's business? Ram Jethmalani says yes, Vinod Mehta says no. Sahil.
I have a slightly different spin, taking off from what Ram has said. There is no privacy for a public person as long as the privacy infringes on his acting responsibly, publicly, for the people. For example, if there is a politician and his private life entails discussing corruptible issues or corruption issues or a bribe or a deal that's being made, and if that deal comes out into the open, then I believe it is as much a matter of public interest and public concern. Having said that, to take Vinod's point, it is true that India has been very soft on the private lives of politicians. We never talked about Jawaharlal Nehru's private life. We never talked about Indira Gandhi's private life. We never talked about Vajpayee's private life.
Well, the question is, how did it impact public good?
Absolutely.
What did it have to do with it?
Because it didn't impact public good, it was not relevant. The relevance is, if a politician's private life impacts we the people, then it does not remain private any longer, because it impacts a country.
Okay.
Let me ask,
Quick.
would you vote for a politician who frequently beats his wife? Would you?
But is beating your wife private? I mean, that constitutes a crime.
No, but supposing it is exposed during an election campaign that this man is a habitual wife beater. Now it is private
Okay,
conduct.
you've given us some food for thought. What if you discover that with a hidden camera planted in somebody's house and there was no other way of finding that out?
But then, Bharta, you're taking the debate.
Sorry, Vinod?
Illegal phone tapping.
Yes.
Phone tapping which bypasses the regulations and guidelines is illegal per se.
But
full
if it
stop.
exposes
It's
another
illegal.
illegality?
And
What
the
if it exposes another illegality?
Politician is entitled to the same benefit. A politician is, after all, a citizen of this country. Of course, if an editor's phone line, for example, if my phone line was being tapped, you would get some very interesting information. I would be outraged if my telephone was
Okay, hang
tapped.
on all of you. Let's just get Abhishek Singhvi in on this entire Amar Singh phone tapping case. Mr. Singhvi, the Congress has denied any hand, the government has denied any hand. But a lot of people don't believe that. That's the truth of it. Everybody's political gut tells them, could Amar Singh's phones have really been tapped without somebody in the party, somebody in the government, somebody in the IB being in the know?
It's first and foremost a legal issue, and legally there is no doubt that phone tapping is not a prohibited activity per se, but that it can be done only under strictly controlled conditions, something akin to probable cause, and probable cause has to be recorded at the moment under Supreme Court guidelines. I think the time has come in the future to look at a statute, a comprehensive act of parliament dealing with it. But there is a second aspect which is not touched upon at all, and that's the societal technical aspect. The technical aspect is this, that in this country of 11 crore phone users and 6 crore mobile users, the vast bulk of tapping is outside the zone of controlled activity altogether. The real issue is when person A bribes or persuades an employee of a service provider, person B, to simply dig into the phones of someone and either give out the information for money or for pleasure, or be used by journalists for sting operations.
Okay,
Thirdly,
those are, yeah, quickly,
the
sir.
political issue, which is your question.
Yeah.
May I just answer the political question very quickly?
Yeah.
We are as much concerned as Amar Singh is about this. But what we object to is not at all the concern in the issue, which I said is the legislative issue, the legal issue and the technical issue. What we object to is the politicization of this, that whenever Mr. Amar Singh has viral fever, whenever he has a scratch, whenever he has a problem, he thinks of 10 Janpath. That's the problem. Today, what is the proof? There are 4 items. There are 3 persons arrested, no connection with 10 Janpath. There is phone tapping by Reliance Infocom or with its involvement, no connection with 10 Janpath. Probably it's closer to Amar Singh than 10 Janpath. Number 3, there is prima facie 2 forged documents waved around in the first press conference by Mulayam Singh Yadav, which are prima facie found to be forged, no connection with 10 Janpath. 80 lakh rupees is only a verbal statement repeatedly verbalized by Amar Singh, no proof. Then what are we talking about? Is it not pure sensationalism?
Okay.
That a man is going from Chennai to Kashmir to Chandrababu Naidu. And may I ask one last question? Was Ms. Jayalalitha and Chandrababu Naidu afflicted with collective amnesia for all these years when their phones were being tapped?
Okay.
And did they require the catalyzing influence of Mr. Amar Singh to be reminded of
Okay,
this
fair,
complaint?
all fair questions, Abhishek Singhvi. Thanks very much. But I think at the hub of the debate is what Ram Jethmalani asked, and Vinod, you'll have to find some way of countering that. Is illegal phone tapping, in a sense, really different from sting operations? I'm just putting the question out there. If it takes a hidden camera to find out, hypothetically, that a politician beats his wife, and there is no other way of finding out, would we justify that? We look at those questions and also look at what Suhail said, double standards, a different standard for politicians, a different standards for celebrities, after the break. Should a politician's private life remain private, or does the public have a right to know? Does our right to information extend into the private life of our political leaders? Before we return to our panelists, let's just do a quick audience poll. Those of you who think that a politician's private telephone conversations, for example, no matter what he is saying in them, should remain private, raise your hands. Should remain private. Okay, and those of you who think that we have the right to listen in on those conversations, raise your hands. Someone who thinks we have the right to listen in, and why do you think that?
I think the significant amount of this, like the citizens of India, would want to know who they are, electing at the end of the day. And celebrities, they do have a very strong influence on general public. People have millions in this country as a fan base.
No, but those are celebrities. What about politicians?
Same with the politicians. I mean, you call them fan club in case of celebrities. You call them respective voters in case of politicians.
Okay, so you feel you have the right to listen, and somebody who feels that you don't have the right to listen. You feel that we don't have the right to listen. Why?
I think each individual, no matter whether you're a common man or a politician or a celebrity, you have a right to your own private personal life. Whatever profession you are in, yes, you're bound by some code of conduct, but then something remains private, which I think is just totally to the individual.
And I think what we all forget is that those spy cams and those phone tapping wires could be turned back on any one of us, all 100 people sitting in this audience. But when the police is asked to tap phones, is it basically, how often is it to do with national security, and how often is it to do with political vendetta?
99% it is only crime.
It's crime.
It's crime. It's crime related. It's related to internal security. It's and the rare case maybe where international relations or something like that. But never, I mean, I have had 35 years in the police and I have never had one occasion where I have had to do something outside this area.
Okay, I want to go back to what Ram said in the beginning. Mr. Jethmalani, you made the point that what if your politician is a wife beater? Now, working backwards from that hypothesis, how would an ordinary person find that out? We don't have access often to the private domains of what goes on behind closed doors. So in that case, if it took a hidden camera, if it took an illegally tapped phone conversation, would that be legitimate?
According to me, the word legitimate is wrongly used in that question.
Okay. Would it be
is
just
still in public interest,
Yes.
though strictly it may not be legal.
so ethically, it would be permissible?
Morally, according to me, it is justified.
You know?
We have to be, again I read, what?
But the specific
No, I'm
example,
answering
a
the
politician
question.
who's a wife
A
beater.
politician's private life is used to damage him politically. After all, what is
But should he not be damaged
I'm not saying-
politically
no,
if he is?
if the state gets hold of that information,
Yeah.
through illegal tapping of say Mr. Amar Singh's phone,
Yes.
you get to know about all his activities, etc. What will it happen?
So what
will it-
activities? That's what's moot, right? What
Well, it
activities?
doesn't matter if he's kissing somebody. That's
So
all right.
that's
No, no,
okay.
private. No, one minute.
Okay.
So
You should-
what happens is that you
leave it-
damage.
You should leave it to the voters to decide
No, but-
whether kissing disqualifies the candidate.
But if you, the whole serious point is
Yeah.
that there's no such thing. If you start creating this distinction that in the interest of public interest or this is his private life, then you give ammunition to the state to use that information to damage that person politically. This is all dynamite in the. Do you think the Congress party would not use information against Amar Singh, whatever telephone conversation?
Of course it would.
They would damage him. They want to damage him
if it has
politically.
come out.
That is illegal.
I believe the issue of phone tapping is a subset of the larger issue you
Which is?
raised. The larger issue is, do public people have private lives? That to my mind is the larger issue. We are getting hemmed and hawed by the current issue of phone tapping. This phone tapping issue to my mind has been trivialized by the people who are participants. Amar Singh should rightfully even sue the service provider. He should sue Reliance Infocom because they to my mind have let him down or they've let a subscriber down. I want to return to the larger issue and take on Vinod's perspective for a minute. Bangaru Lakshman was in public life by being president of the ruling party at that point in time when there was a sting operation. He was caught taking money. To my mind, that was germane to public interest. Now you might say because he took the money in his office or on the pretext of a Christmas party that he was actually organizing for a Hindutva party, you know, it's forgiven. My point is, as long as public people, as long as politicians have probity in politics assigned to them, there will always be a thin line
But aren't
and a blurring
politicians
line
just you and
between
me?
what is
Sohail,
private and
Sohail,
what is
aren't
conduct.
politicians
Let
just
me
you
just
and me?
answer.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
His point is that Bangaru Lakshman was not caught by the state. My point is the state should not be involved
Okay,
in
let me rephrase the question
But
to you
the state
differently.
is not involved
What
in
if
this.
I, a
No,
journalist,
no, what he's claiming,
Vinod,
He may claim.
That is the point.
Okay, once again,
I would be the last person to defend it.
Let me-
That is the point now.
Let's rephrase the question. Let's rephrase the question. If a private citizen turned out to have tapped Amar Singh's phones and it was a kind of journalistic sting operation, would the ethics of it be
That
different
would
for you?
be in my pecking order, that would be a lower class of crime.
let me tell
The
you,
biggest
morally
crime
it will
would
be
be committed by the state.
But you would defend it journalistically?
I
Go let him
that's a
answer.
different debate.
No, it's not a different debate. It's not a different debate.
Let me
Vinod.
tell you, if the press had done to Amar Singh what he claims Ambika Soni has done to him, there would have been a moral high ground that this entire country would have taken and said that, look, the press has done it in the interest of the
And
people
are the
of
ethics
India.
really different if the press were to have done it?
I would imagine perhaps, because there would be no vendetta. I would imagine perhaps the ethics would be
Confusing
different.
the issue. I'm talking about the state
Okay.
involved
I think-
against its political
I'm sorry,
opponents.
you are making the law stand on its head. The law today is that only the state and its instrumentalities under proper authorization can do the
But that's not how it actually works. Actually, we have a detective.
Now we are
have.
talking of something which is essentially outside
Let's
the
see
law.
how easy it is to do this. Let's see how easy it is to do this. You head a detective agency in the capital. How often do you get requests for tapping phones? And if somebody wanted to get somebody's phone tapped, how would it work?
Well, many people come, but we have to see case to case.
Example.
I mean, supposing a wife comes and she
Thinks her
wants to
husband is
hire
a-
our services to tape his husband's her husband's telephone. Then what we do is, if we say absolutely we are satisfied that she is real the wife of that man, not anybody else, no, any lady coming and saying that he is
I
my
worry about
husband.
Sherlock Holmes.
You see, then what we do is we get a authority letter signed
From whom?
from the client.
Okay.
Then there is an agreement form.
Okay.
That also we get signed. After that only we start our operation.
But you have the gadgetry to do this. You don't really need the state or the government's permission to tap somebody's phone.
Yeah.
You can do it on your own.
Yes.
Then do a better job.
So, so Mr. Jethmalani, this is a contradiction.
You see,
I could hire this gentleman to have tapped Amar Singh's phone.
Except that you're not his wife.
Well,
I have saved 26 people from hanging so far
by
by
doing what?
recording and by
tapping
photographing
the
it.
How?
Yes.
How?
see,
How
by-
have you saved them from hanging?
Because I knew that who has actually done it. They were innocent people implicated by police. I have all the records with me.
Okay, so that's an interesting point there, but Ram Jethmalani, it actually contradicts your argument and it actually buttresses
What's my
Abhishek Singhvi.
argument, Barka?
How?
That it may be
state is
outside
not
the law,
needed.
but it is nevertheless conducive to promotion of justice.
But the state is not needed and therefore Vinod is actually not a separate argument. One argument is if the state is tapping phones. But as a method or tool of unearthing information, is it justifiable? I think that's what
I
we're
think
really
we
looking
have
at.
to be, again, I'm using this word careful many times. In sting operations, I've also said that in the rarest of rare cases, these days any TV channel with a little camera and a dog will do a sting operation. You know, I think we have to be very careful that we don't trivialize this debate, we don't trivialize sting operation to catch a traffic constable taking 10 rupees and say, this is a sting.
No, having said that, as Ram rightly said, what happened and Amar Singh's protests are justified. I think where the mistake has been made is the response of the Ambika Sonis of the world and the trivialization by Amar Singh of this entire episode. He is absolutely justified in seeing that private lines are not tapped. But the point is, you can't convert this into an Operation Majnu affair. You travel the length and breadth of the country trying to muster support from people who are no
So both
paragons.
sides have trivialized it probably to deflect attention from the things they're really worried about.
And I don't even think those things are really that important.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. After that, Deepal Shaw joins us as we debate another aspect of this entire media controversy. Why do we find it easier to talk about the private lives of non-political celebrities as compared to politicians? That's after the break.
We do whatever it takes to get to the bottom of the story.
Hello and welcome to the X Factor.
The factor that's moving a headline in a whole new direction.
Are you embarrassed?
Everybody and anybody has committed a mistake.
It did not have the courage.
He rejected my bail when I was inside jail.
The sex symbol tag follows me.
The tigers of Siriska have been poached.
Politics is not for me a profession, it's a mission.
The X Factor. It's what lies beneath. Till we bring it up. Monday to Thursday at 10 p.m. on NDTV 24/7. X Factor. Brought to you by Kotak. Think investments, think Kotak. No Chinta, only money. From ICICI Prudential Life Insurance. Hyundai gets. Sanya drives gets. What drives you? And Rajnikantha. Muh mein Rajnikantha. Kadmon mein duniya.
What's an investment without a blue chip? Presenting SBI Blue Chip Fund from SBI Mutual Fund. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Please read the offer document carefully before investing.
सालों से मैं महंगा वाला साबुन यूज कर रही थी, स्किन भी ठीक थी। फिर पीएच स्ट्रिप के बारे में पता चला। कह रहे थे कि अगर ये ब्लू हो जाए तो आपका साबुन हार्श है। पहले जब डिटर्जेंट पे ट्राई किया, ब्लू होना ही था। पर मेरा साबुन ब्लू होने वाला नहीं था। शॉकिंग है ना? ब्लू और डव रंग ही नहीं बदला।
1/4 मॉइस्चराइजिंग क्रीम युक्त डव सबसे ज्यादा सौम्य है।
तब से मैं डव यूज कर रही हूँ। मेरी स्किन सिर्फ ठीक नहीं, इट्स ग्रेट।
मोबाइल जिंदगी भर चालू की बात कर रहे हो बादशाह।
एयरटेल का नया लाइफ टाइम प्रीपेड, बस एक बार 999 रुपए दो, जिंदगी भर मोबाइल रहो, सिर्फ एयरटेल पर।
लाइफ टाइम के लिए सेट है।
प्रीपेड जो कभी बंद ना हो। क्या बात कर रहे हैं साहब?
एयरटेल का नया लाइफ टाइम प्रीपेड, बस एक बार 999 रुपए दो, जिंदगी भर मोबाइल रहो, सिर्फ एयरटेल पर।
लाइफ टाइम के लिए सेट। चिंतामणि!
Remove the weight of tax and get the maximum from ICICI Prudential Life Insurance with tax savings, big returns and protection too.
Now shoulders are light, life is sunny, for there's no chinta, only money.
Welcome back. Before we return to our panelists, some comments from the audience. Go ahead.
Well, it's as simple as this. What you are in private life will definitely going to reflect in your public life also. So it's wrong. It's not wrong to know somebody's private life.
You don't think you can keep the two categories separate?
Yeah, a person who is completely corrupted and immoral can become a prime minister later on.
Okay. And you were saying, ma'am?
I think every person has a dual personality, one which is at home and one which is in the public. In We the People, I may be appreciating Barkha Dutt, but
at home you may say she's terrible! I don't have one, so I'm clear. Let me get Deepal Show in now. Interestingly, somebody actually, just to remind our viewers what your story is, somebody actually hacked in and used your email account to send out all kinds of sort of soliciting messages, obscene messages. You're also by coincidence starring in a film that actually has the camera in the bedroom of a honeymooning couple, and their first night is then put on a porn site. Deepal, what's your whole take on this? You know, the conventional argument is people like yourself need the media to breathe, so then you can't choose what the media covers.
Well, it's more important to understand that it is a society which is so celebrity obsessed. When we come to the media, you know, as you said, that non-political celebrities are soft targets. You know, in a totalitarian society like this, the restraining factor is fear. Everyone tacitly understands the highest level of corruption is happening in the higher levels of the public survival, but no one will dare, you know, try and investigate that. And in the garb of investigative journalism, when you use sting operations to find what's happening in Shakti Kapoor's life and stuff like that, it leads to no consequence. So I think this is just because non-political celebrities are far more glamorous and more attractive and beyond the horizon.
Certainly better looking.
Better looking, of course, that's one of the factors. And they, you know, they fill in the bill. You know, they fit in the bill. They look good on the cover pages of every magazine and newspapers. That is the reason that they are soft targets. And
so is that something you agree with, that in our press, we don't go into territory with politicians, unlike the West actually, where the private lives of politicians are up for discussion, as we do with our film stars?
There are two things. One is we don't, because as Deepal rightly mentioned, non-political celebrities are softer targets, and political people have a fine way of cutting across party lines and swimming together come a crisis. They have that knack. But I just want to take you very quickly to the United Kingdom, which in the last 4 months has experienced this privacy public debate. David Cameron, when he was fighting for the leadership of the Tories, was continuously asked about his drug habit, and he refused to comment. And he won that election. And he won that election because he said, I'm not going to be... No, wait. Charles Kennedy yesterday resigned as the leader of the Liberal Democratic Party because he admitted to a drinking problem that he had. These kind of admissions would be rare amongst the Indian political domain, which is why it almost becomes imperative, fashionable, and at times necessary for the media to either intervene or for non-state interventions like the ones we see.
I think it's no great loss to Indian journalism that the private lives, it stays away from the private lives of politicians. I think Indian journalists have many, many other things to do. And thank God that our press is not tabloid. We have just shown, just last week, how we can vilify and crucify a man who is politically not on my side, but my heart goes out to him, is Sanjay Ghosh.
Yes.
Look what exposure has done to the man. Consensual sex, I mean, a bachelor in the privacy of his hotel, he's doing something.
You know, my heart goes out to him, but the argument would be he's a bachelor who's meant to be celibate.
Yeah, but
politically, that's his stated position. I don't agree with the CD, but there is
the hypocrisy of his own parivar. But I'm saying that sting operation has been done in the interest of exposure. It has been done in the interest of that we are going to expose this man. So I am saying to you that do not lament the fact that Indian media, NDTV, Outlook, all these people don't get inside the bedrooms of politicians. That is not our primary concern. The people didn't give us our jobs to do that. That can be a
then
part.
Why do we get into the bedrooms of film stars? Why do we get into the bedrooms
I
of
want to
film
ask
stars?
Vinod one thing. Is getting into Shakti Kapoor's bedroom of national importance? I don't think so.
I think it matters neither here nor there. But the media not a great concern. The media that does this kind of thing, we know what kind of media that is. In every country,
it may be a very interesting exercise.
Okay, Ram, sorry, Ram, repeat that joke for us because we missed it.
It may be an interesting exercise.
No, but more seriously.
But listen,
titillation rating points.
You are right. You are right that it is no loss to journalism because some journalists are birds of feather.
No, but
it is lost to the public.
Why?
The public has the right to know.
What? Who's having an adulterous affair with whom? Why? Why does it matter to the public?
Well, it matters to the public that if a person is continuously lying to his wife, he might also lie to the people. Therefore, in the case of a politician, his private life is of importance. But you must draw a line somewhere. You
must draw a line very early, otherwise you get into voyeurism.
But if you get something about private life and you use it for the purpose of blackmail and extortion, that's wrong. But if you go to the people and say, well, this man is a wife beater, can you trust him to be in the legislature?
So is it the...
Somewhere.
Now
Can you define that word?
It may be difficult to draw a line, but that doesn't mean that a line should not be drawn.
But hang on.
These are very serious moral problems, and in the field of morals, it is very difficult to draw these lines with accuracy.
Right,
Everybody has to do it according to his conscience.
I have a question. I think that somewhere the liberal argument would be there's a difference between someone who has consenting sex between two adults is one thing, but drug abuse. Suppose you found out, Vinod Mehta, that one of your politicians, your law minister, wherever, is an abuser of cocaine, wife beating, domestic violence. In our minds, subjectively, we draw a distinction between consensual sex, even if adultery violates the law, and other kinds of crimes. You said pedophile in the beginning. Surely we have a right to know if our politicians are pedophiles.
If that politician was exposed like Charles Kennedy went on television and he voluntarily admitted to that television program that he had an alcoholic problem. I come back to what I said to you earlier. I don't want the state to meddle. I am making this distinction that the state should not be involved.
That distinction is accepted, but what about Deepal's point here?
Then we can draw the lines that Ram wants to draw, the grey lines and the blue lines and the red. But the point is, where is that line? It's so subjective.
But why will we write?
I put the line.
But why will we write? So hey, one second, both of you, just 1 second. The question remains: why even in the mainstream supplements of our national newspapers, or in the entertainment capsules of our television channels, who is sleeping with whom in Bollywood constitutes legitimate entertainment news, but we will never apply that kind of coverage to politicians?
For the simple reason, as I mentioned earlier, the non-political celebrities are softer targets. They don't have the force of a cadre base or a party to respond. They don't have the force of reason or
what about the fact that they probably live off the press maybe more than politicians?
And they do. There have been innumerable instances when just before a film release, the leading lady and the leading man are supposedly having an affair, which almost disappears after the premiere.
That is speculative journalism. That is what they speculate. And
absolutely.
And that is what, because there's this new way of a marketing ploy of films, so that even the producers are happy by that.
I have very little sympathy for outraging the private life of film stars.
Why?
Because the private life of film stars is traded, the sex life of, if you lived in Bombay and you know how the film media works, film stars trade their own, it's for sale by the film stars themselves. Their own sex life is put on sale. When I say on sale, I meant it's for circulation in the press at the appropriate time, then withdrawn. What happens to a film star who's going up the ladder? He's all kinds of...
But isn't it like a sweeping generalization?
No, you can't bring...
Do cameras have the right to Does a camera phone have the right to take a photograph of Kareena Kapoor and Shahid Kapoor kissing as two private
But that has been
citizens?
criticized. I mean, we've all said that. But to say that justifies the state for also doing it.
State we've accepted with State we've accepted.
Just forget the state for a moment.
Yeah.
The private life of these Bollywood actors and actresses is a matter of no public consequence or concern.
I agree
and,
with that.
And therefore there is no use tapping them or using your
The public's right to know end. That's what we're going to look at in this segment. Let's get a question here. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to ask you this thing that, okay, a politician's private life affects we the people. Then don't you think that we should tap IAS officers and IPS officers telephone, because they are the public servants and their private life has to be related to other people's life also?
Well, that's the whole point. Where does this end? Ram, one more question, then you can.
I have a question for Mr. Jetkulani. What if the politician is not doing anything wrong and you keep tapping his conversation, keep recording whatever he's doing into his private life? Is he to be compensated for it?
In fairness, if he is doing nothing wrong, you should be able to make a declaration that this man seems to be a man of good character.
And how often would he do that?
But there'll still be things which he would not want to be public.
But he doesn't suffer anything. What has he suffered that he should be compensated for it?
Isn't it suffering to have your privacy violated? Isn't that a sense of intrusion?
These are all loaded terms.
They're not loaded terms. Come on, Ram, they're not loaded terms. Is there no such thing?
Your major premise carries the conclusion already.
All right, let me ask you. Is there nothing that's private? Is there nothing that is private and sacred for you? For a person who holds...
There is. I told you that my client's communications to me are sacred.
But I just want to make this whole question, Barka, that the public's right to know, does the public have right to know everything? I mean, does it simply mean that I can be a judge who's not very nice to my wife, but I can still be a good judge?
But can you be a judge who's fair then when handling issues of domestic violence and sexual abuse if you are not fair to your wife?
These are all question marks. You're always raising all these questions, but I want the simplistic thing that this great Indian Janta has the right to know everything. So put everything like a Dhobi Ghat, put everything on the bloody washing machine.
I can conclude this whole discussion in one sentence. Write your autobiography like Mahatma Gandhi, who said everything, that I have wrong desire, and he was not criticized in public either. He was appreciated by everybody. Why you are hiding if you want to become a celebrity? So write an autobiography if you have a dream to become something. That's all. Thank you.
Now we can't all become authors. Thanks to, different...
Okay, one question.
I think it's not about tapping.
Okay, let's just hear this question.
Even Gandhiji called it experiments with truth. It was not all truth.
He didn't say He didn't say truth.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I think there's guidelines from Supreme Court about tapping phones and all that. But what my question is that who should tap the phone actually? If CBI thinks that somebody is corrupt or he's doing anti-national activities, I think they should be allowed to tap the phone.
No, but now we're talking about people like Ramesh Madan. Should Mr. Madan be allowed to tap my phone?
Yes,
I mean,
let me.
Yes.
If authorized by your husband.
I'm clear because I don't have one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, no.
There should always be one party to sign an authority letter. Because without authority letter, I will not take up any assignment.
I have a question for you.
Because tomorrow if you ask me on whose behalf you were working.
One second. 1 second. Silence here. Silence. I have a question for you. Does someone's husband or wife have the authority, the moral authority according to you, to say, please tap so-and-so's phone?
Yes, they are.
Why? Why?
This is what come on. Come on, wait. You are talking about husband and wife.
Yeah.
So, you see, husband, if he suspects his wife and he has reasons to believe that she is going where somebody, having an affair.
Then he has the right to give you that authority.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is
because
Okay. 1 second. So
this is how bizarre the literal translation of what we're discussing is.
Yes.
If the whole issue is an illegality, then to say that I'm getting an authority letter to therefore legally do something illegal, I think this whole thing is stupid. I think the larger debate is
you get an authority letter to do something illegal.
That's
real contradiction here.
So, I think it's bizarre.
The fact is,
the fact that it is done. His advocate is asking for evidence.
Both of them are saying partly right.
What both of them
all
please
things
can
are
you
linked
keep
up.
quiet, please? Yes.
What both of them say is right, but the strict legal position is that even criminal jurisprudence recognizes the commission of a smaller offence to prevent the commission of a larger one.
Okay.
This is part of criminal jurisprudence.
Okay.
Therefore, today the law is that all private wiretapping is illegal. You commit a breach of the law and you commit a prosecutable offence. But if the idea is to find out evidence of the innocence of a person who is being tried for murder and his life is at stake, you are doing it for a higher cause, and criminal jurisprudence recognizes that as a sufficient justification for committing a smaller crime.
Now this is...
One more.
Yeah.
Supposing I am an accused person and there is a document which I know will establish my innocence. That document is in the possession of some rascal who doesn't want to part with it. I am entitled to steal it.
What is the public good in Mr. Amar Singh's conversation? I have had
How do we
conversations with Mr. Amar Singh many times. Mr. Amar Singh is the most open person in this country. I can't see any great public good coming out of except voyeurism and titillation at the most. But that information,
That says it all.
that information is capable of being misused. I am saying if you do this, I agree with Ram that there can be exceptional, the rarest of rare cases, murder, this and that. But what you're giving an open house to say you do it, he is entitled to do it, and each time we say, but this is in the public good, this is in the public interest. That is the recipe for anarchy.
Now, should there be specific laws on privacy which we don't have, which is the point that Maxwell was trying to raise, and what would exclude that? This thing that you call greater public good, Ram, the problem is who is in a position to define this? Some editor may think this isn't the greater good, I want to know whether so-and-so judge treats his wife well. Is that greater public good?
Plus regulation of detective
we have a
activity.
law of obscenity.
Yes.
What is obscene?
There is no regulation
Now,
of detective
can
activity.
anybody describe what is obscene? Nobody can lay down a firm guideline for determining it. Ultimately, some critic had to say
in the eyes of the
that
beholder.
obscene is that which produces an erection in Justice Frankfurter.
No, but that, I mean, that's a great joke, but it doesn't answer the question. No, it's a serious question. Who decides whether it's legitimate for somebody?
The question is, initially you have to take a decision for yourself on your own intelligence and knowledge, but if it is found that your judgment was wrong and the judgment of a judge in the highest court is to the contrary, you will have to pay the penalty for it. That's all.
Okay, final comments, Maxwell. Final comments.
Yeah, there is no regulation of detective agencies or detective activity in the country. It is high time we have some kind of a regulation for detective activity.
And not left to the amorphousness that presently exists in people.
Yes, and I feel that the privacy laws need to be well defined, and as they said that if it's for the public interest, if it's for the good for the public, then, and because the politicians are representatives, so we need to know what is happening.
Are you ever scared of talking to journalists?
I am not at all scared.
You're not scared?
I mean, I'm saying that even if a non-political celebrity is, suppose, mingling with an underworld don, trying to harm or doing something antisocial, even that has to be probed in. So it is something which is in the interest of the public.
Okay, so here.
See, I started by saying that public personalities have limited private lives. And I maintain that they have limited private lives because what they do in their private lives...
So who all constitutes a public person? Who all constitutes
I would imagine people in public office, politicians, perhaps judges, perhaps ministers, bureaucrats, police officers, because to my mind they dispense justice and fair play in the systems that govern each one of us.
So their rights to privacy are limited?
Have to be.
Okay.
For the simple reason that in their private lives they could be manipulating governance norms. And there needs to be that thin line. Where that line is drawn, whether Vinod draws it or Ram draws it with blue ink or grey ink, that's another matter.
Okay, Ram, final comments.
Legislation is necessary, as has been suggested, but I can only warn you that the legislation ultimately will be framed by politicians and it will not be a sound one.
The Indian citizen, whether he's a politician or he's a film star, privacy is sacrosanct. It should be violated under the strictest of conditions, and those who illegally violate it should be penalized to the highest degree. The Indian citizen must feel comfortable that when he's picking up the phone, when he's talking to somebody, whether he's talking to his dog or he's talking to his wife, knows that that conversation is confidential. If we should take that confidentiality away, you are not a civilized society. In a civilized society, Confidentiality does not always mean illegality. It does not always mean that you are doing something illegal. It means that two consensual citizens can have a private conversation. That is very important.
Most of us have grown up on cross connections.
Yeah.
So there's very little that's remained private in the past.
Yeah.
All right, we'll end the program with that thought and with the thought that for everyone's phone conversations we listen in on, our conversations are probably being heard by somebody somewhere as we speak.
Big brother.
Big brother. Big brother.
I know what you did last night.
Okay. All right, thanks very much. We end the program.